So, these reservoir questions later. We'll continue with the other presenters. So just have your questions and we'll all entertain them later. So for our second presenter, she is an anthropologist working on issues in social health, specifically the social construction of vulnerabilities to diseases. She is the lead research associate of the Social Health Studies Unit of the Research Center for Social Sciences and Education of the University of Santo Tomas, where she is also an assistant professor for sociology and anthropology. She serves as the director-in-chief of the Journal of Social Health. She has been involved in research project funded by UNDP, UNAIDS, Conservation International, the Philippines Department of Science and Technology, and Brown International Advanced Research Institute. Her current projects that are funded by DOST include an exploration of the health-seeking behavior of children living with tuberculosis in informal settlements and an ethnographic study of the Philippine duck egg industry. She is the lead editor of the forthcoming edited volume entitled Aging in the Global South, Challenges and Opportunities, which will be released by Lexington Books USA. She is also co-editing an edited volume entitled The Politics of Disaster, Ethnographies of Vulnerability and Hope in the Contemporary Philippines. Let's all welcome Maria Carin Alexandria Gonzalez.
Hi, thank you, Ma'am Carol. Number one, I'm not a director. Number two, it's Carin. So, anyway, I'm wearing a different hat today because I'm supposed to be discussing with you my work on disaster. And I've entitled this presentation as Framing Disaster Vulnerability in Urban Informal Settlements because that's where I work. I used to be an anthropologist dealing with indigenous population, more like political anthropologist until I decided I can't climb mountains anymore. So now that I've relocated my work on urban informal settlements, I thought that would be an interesting journey, and it has been. In fact, today I'm very proud. I was just speaking with them. I've been emotional because it's the very first time that I'm presenting my work in front of the people that I work with in the community. So I'd like to acknowledge Ate Marie, Mary Jane, and Michael. They've been with me in Baseco compound for the past 6 years now. It's different when you present your work to an audience of scholars. It's different when the community members who have helped you get to your agenda be there and be present. Sorry po, hindi po ako mag-Tagalog yun, Ate Maria. Okay. So, alright, moving on. I'm supposed to play. Right. So, this is a photo I took of Baseco back in 2012 at the onset of Typhoon Hener, internationally known as Typhoon Saloa. And during that time, I was amazed at how children were not scared of the waves or the threat that there was a super typhoon coming in. In fact, the typhoon devastated the National Capital Region at that time. And some of them were even telling me, "Do you want to come play with us by the shore?" And I'm thinking, are you serious? Number one, garbage. Number two, I can't swim, and I mean, this is not a play area. But for them, it wasn't a threat. For them, it was a reality. It was a playground. And what's interesting is that it made me question who actually frames the concept of disaster. How do we understand disaster? As a person who has worked on food security, one of the things I've realized is that international concepts of food security do not necessarily apply to our localized concepts of food security. Since this is not a food security discussion, I could just discuss that with you during lunch. But for today, the question I'd like to pose is, how do we really understand disaster? Is disaster the way that we've read from our journals? Is disaster the way that media portrayed it? How do we understand disaster? Because bottom line is, for the people that I've worked with in Baseco, disaster comes in a very different form. And for these kids, that was a disaster. It was playtime, and eventually it was an economic windfall of resources. Why? Because with floods come what they call as kalakal. I'll discuss more about that in a while. Kalakal is a localized term for what they call as scrap. So, this is the framework that I try to hang on to for trying to make sense of what I see on an everyday context in Baseco. So I am inclined a bit with political economy. A lot of you will not agree with that, especially that I'm an anthropologist. But I looked into a framework called Everyday Political Economy Approach, wherein the structures of society are actually seen within the everyday lives of people. And so this is how I'm framing disaster discussion, my disaster discussion for today. I'm going local, talking about Baseco, but at the same time, I'm going to provide a critique of national development policies. As you would notice, I'm attacking a fourfold approach here. Dr. Abinir already discussed to you the social cultural prescriptions. There are gender roles, age roles, and a whole lot more that make people vulnerable to a disaster and the extent of what they can achieve in terms of resilience. But I'm also very much interested in climate change measures, policies on development, and political objectives. And I'm going to use Baseco as a framework for this. And for most of you who are LGUs, you're coming from various provinces that also face the issue of informal settlement. And I think this is a good framework that today's discussion, my discussion today, would be a good framework for you to understand how to really work with the people of the margins. So this is Baseco compound. It's so amazing. I showed Ate Marie this map today, and I said, "Do you know that this is how Baseco looks like, in an aerial map?" And she was just said, "Oh, really?" And then I said, "Look at that." This. Nope, doesn't laser. There. You would notice that at this part, this is still an empty area, and it's full of water. This is a map, a Google Earth screen capture of 2001. And this chunk of land used to be water. In the 1960s, that used to be water. What happened? Why did they create this thing? Because this thing happened. It's the shipyard called Baseco Compound, the Anshipi Corporation. And it was established during the Marcos period. And when they started the shipyard right here, what happened was that people started migrating to that area. Of course, they're going to work there, and because they're going to work there, they have to have some settlement. Since housing is not cheap or affordable, what would happen is that people will try their very best to just address their housing insecurity. So they started building houses here. Soon enough, the government noticed that this is a growing population, to the point that this is how it looks like now. Oops, sorry. There. This is how it looks like now. You would notice that this entire open space has been covered, full of people now. And you would notice this another structure was also created, this one, which is called the breakwater. Why? What is the function of this? It's supposed to stop the incoming surge during storm and flooding, and it was the project of President Gloria Arroyo at the time. The thing is that it looks, to some extent, you would say, oh, so the government is active in this place. They made it into a barangay, so a local political unit. They made it into a barangay. They built barangay halls. They did a lot of things. They even provided the breakwater. So everything must be good, right? The thing is that every single person living in this 52-hectare, they're all informal settlers, undocumented informal settlers, up until today. And that is a major issue for me as a researcher who's been studying this. And as you would listen later on to the talks of our invited guests, it remains to be a big issue today. 52 hectares of informal settlement. Today, they estimate 70,000 human beings, all undocumented. This is a data that the NSO at the time, now the Philippine Statistics Authority, provided. It said there are 59,847 human beings. But these are not credible because there are other people that have not been documented. So the rough estimate of the barangay, or the political unit right now, is about 70,000 human beings. But given the current issue with the government and the drug issue, because this is a drug haven, a lot of people moved out and a lot of people left, so the population dwindled. Every day there's about 3 to 5 people dying of Tokang, or the drug war. So it became, the population is getting a bit more fluid than this. You see, I'd like to frame this discussion with the context initially of exclusive policies. You see, one thing that we have to understand is that people are migrating to the national capital region, and you would notice that we have 20,785 persons per square kilometer in NCR. Compare that to, let's say, Cordillera Administrative Region with 82 per square kilometer. That's a total massive, significant difference, right? And the Philippine average of 308 person per square kilometer. NCR has 20,000. It's a very packed unit. And what's interesting is that I'm very glad we're doing this one in Clark, because if we did this in Metro Manila, all our foreign friends would realize that, number one, Philippines is so congested. We only feel like Philippines is nice right now because we're in Clark, with a lot of trees and stuff, less pollution. But the moment you enter NCR, you're bombarded by this population density. And why? Because we have such an exclusive development. Sorry that I'm not going to go through the agricultural issue here, but one of the main issues that I've tackled in a lot of my papers is that the government has slashed our funding for agriculture, even for climate change subsidy for farmers. And because of that, children don't want to do farming anymore. Older folks don't want to do farming anymore. And because you don't want to do farming, what happens? What else are your choices in life but to go into the city, be an informal contractual laborer? So you could, I've done papers on prostitution, and I've tracked down how this agricultural issue has translated into the vulnerability of young women to prostitution. From Davao, they moved to Cebu City just so that they could cope with non-agricultural viability. And so what they do is that they go to Cebu, and tourism is a boom, and tourism provides other necessary job, like, not necessary, but other dark context of the job, which would be dark tourism, such as sex and exploitation. So my point being is that with high urbanization comes a lot of issues about disaster. Why? Because most of these people will have to take on their settlement in hazardous areas. We have here an expert of this as well. Dr. Arlene Cheta is an expert on informal hazardous zones. She's working with a lot of people who are also made vulnerable because of their choices of residences. This is Baseco compound. In fact, this is Ate Marie's house. I asked permission from Ate Marie. Can I show these pictures? Because she's going to be here and she might feel awkward. This is a perpetually submerged area, especially now. It rains, it's submerged. It doesn't rain, it's still submerged. With flood water, garbage, because garbage truck doesn't get there almost every day. That's a problem. And one of the bigger issues is that there's no toilet. In fact, UST was the first to build a toilet in that area. I cannot, when I met Ate Marie, I cannot understand why government would allow them to stay there, not relocate them, but ensure that they vote. So it was a very pragmatic scenario, and there was no toilet. So I asked some of my friends on Facebook. Yep, Facebook works. So I asked friends on Facebook, is there anybody here who would like to donate money so that I can build a toilet? And we were able to build a toilet there. The first toilet in that compound, am I right, Ate Marie? That's the, Ate Marie, tama? Yun yung unang toilet doon. That's the first toilet in that compound, and it's being shared by about 10 families. About 10 families are sharing that. The government has decided to leave this place alone. Or maybe not. Let's see. And as you heard from Adam's presentation the other day, with disaster and the non-availability of toilets and proper sewage, this becomes a whole lot of a health crisis. Because where do you throw your waste? Back into the sea brings it back to you, and it's a charade of health issues. That's why skin diseases and a whole lot of diarrhea stuff that Adam is into, that one happens in this area on a regular day. This is my biggest issue of all time. Why? You don't want to relocate them. You don't want to give them their land tenure. You just numbered their houses just for the sake that you could count how many people can vote for you. So what do? You don't relocate them, but you build them an evacuation center. And you might say, but that's good policy making. No, there are 70,000 human beings in Baseco. That building can only accommodate 4,000 human beings. 4,000, and they're not going to move. But they remain to be, there remains to be the statement that people were doing our very best. Look, we built an evacuation center. Not everyone can evacuate. A lot of them stay on their houses under the threat, especially older adults. That's one of my research and recent publication that I did. Especially older adults, they don't leave their houses during flooding. Even if the water turns up to here, they don't leave it. Why? Because number one, who's going to look after the house? That's the main issue. Number two, it's necessary that I don't move anymore because there are no good roads to the evacuation center. If you're old, you can't move that far, especially if you're going to go through mud and whatnot. So this, yeah, sure, it promotes some kind of safety for the locals, but at the same time, it's the greatest marker of inequality in this society. Speaking of toilets, the government is doing something about the toilet situation. This happened sometime, I think I remember it was 5 years ago that they started bringing the toilet. I think five years na, no? 5 years ago, they started bringing the toilet in. And they had a lot of photo opportunities there. I'm sure it was 5 years ago. Why? Because it was 5 years ago when we built the toilet. And then after we built the toilet, people have been asking, who built the toilet? And I put our University of Santo Tomas. Why? Because initially there was no name for it until a local official decided to put a tarpaulin of the face and the name of that person on the toilet that we made. So I said, you know what? Take off the tarpaulin, we're going to write our name. Because I didn't want to write like, donated by UST. But it so happened that they wanted to take credit for what we did. And so after a few months, I think, the toilet started coming in. 5,000 toilet roll. It was everywhere. CNN, everybody covered it. And then, what's interesting is, 5 years after, that's still how it looks like. Every single time I visit Baseco, the toilets are still there. Why? Issue. Sure, provide bowls. They even gave it to not human beings, of course human beings. They even gave it out to the family, saying, oh, here's the gift from our senator, here's your toilet. Oh, please, for the senator, don't kill me, all right? I have a child, so let's be nice to one another and just be critical. So the toilet, they offered it to each household. But the question is, do we have septic tanks? No. Number two, you use the toilet, you have to flush it. Where do we get the water? When in fact, teacher right there did her thesis on water insecurity in Baseco. Teacher right there documented that there are about only 20 pipe water connection in that area for about 3 blocks. 3 blocks meaning around 6,000 to 9,000 persons. Only 20 pipes. And And I've updated my data because my data still says 7 pesos per 6 gallon. I asked Ate Marie, how much is the water right now? And then she said 8 pesos per container, which is about 6 gallons. Electricity is also not connected to every house. There's like for the Filipinos, you know what it's called? It's called jumper, right? There's a line, and it's being shared by several human beings, right? A household, 35 pesos per kilowatt hour. So my point being is, there are too many projects and policies of the government that are not being very well thought out. The road, the very famous road. I mean, back in the day that I go to Pasego, I can only go there by walking several, probably a kilometer or 2 or 3 kilometers from the entrance to the muddy part to what we call as a Les Miserables moment. You know when John Valjean got duped with all the poop. We have that moment there. So we're saying, oh, this is the John Valjean area now, and the thing is that the same senator who gave away toilets also said, you know what, because I want this place to be clean. She kind of made it like a pet project of some sort and said, oh, I want to make this clean, I want to build a road. Because by road, this means that garbage collection will come in, and because garbage collection didn't come in, this place will be pretty. Nope, that's not what happened. This is how it looks like. And sometimes worse. Why? Even if you, again, it's an issue of lack of transparency between the government and the community. It's an issue about non-consultative projects between the government and the community. We need to ensure, and I really frame my discussion right now because this way, because I know we have a lot of LGU in our group, and I believe in your capacity to actually convince your mayors and whatnot to be more consultative in your arrangements with the community and how to make them resilient. So look at this. Do you know that because of that road, Ate Marie's house right now gets flooded? It doesn't even get flooded, but now it gets a perpetual flood. Why? Because that road cut the way between Ate Marie's house and the shore. Now what happens is that when the shore overflows and goes to Ate Marie's house, it doesn't go back anymore. It just floods the entire area. So this is what I call living in disaster every day. This is a reality for them. And I hate it because Michael is here, and I don't want him. Michael, I met him when he was 6 years old. He's 12 years old now. And I hate that Michael is here to listen and see me present this because this is how he saw it. This is how he grew up in. And it's very difficult to let him know that this should not be the case. This one is working.
It's working.
It's working now. That boat is not there for convenience. That boat got brought in by the flood, so it's permanently stuck there. And in some context, I think they would be mentioning about an event that happened recently about ships getting moved to this part. Because when it rains and there's a storm, this is a place where you park it's a shipyard. So when there's a storm, there's a great possibility that the houses of Ate Marie and those along the shore might get hit by the ships that get brought there by the waves. All of those are garbage. All of those are garbage. So I was mentioning to you a while ago that sometimes disaster is not disaster for some people. I've done 2 papers on disaster, one from an older adult perspective, one I'm co-authoring with Dr. Ancheta on children's perspective about disaster. And they have not seen disaster the way that we frame disaster. For the older adults, they saw disaster as an opportunity for Kalakal, especially for the Kalakal collectors, the scrap collectors. You see, there's just 2 limited sources of income in Pasego. One of the income that they have is pagbabawang, which is peeling the garlic. So one sack of garlic at the Marie is 50 to 70 pesos. 50 to 70 pesos. You turn that over in 24 hours. And it burns. Some of my assistants have tried this, and you know, just to try. And they said, no, we can't do that for the entire day. Yeah, but Baseco folks do that because that's one of the limited options that they could choose from. Another thing that they could do is, I've written a paper about this. It's called Dirtier. In other places called Bagpag, which is the recycling of food. So the food that you throw goes to from Jollibee, McDonald's. People collect that. So more like I think in the U.S. and other North American contexts, this would be called dumpster diving. But this is not a cute version of dumpster diving that I see on YouTube. This one literally would be the food that people ate from already, and then people collect it, and what they do is that they wash it, they recook it, and sometimes they sell it, sometimes they feed it to their family. A lot of the older adult people that I've worked with have participated in this. Why? Because number one, food is very expensive. With household income, you know, Alejandria and Mary Jane are quite what do you call this? The less struggling families in Baseco compound. There are more people in Baseco, so in short, they eat every day. At Maria and Mary Jane. Michael eats every day, you know, he's healthy, 3 times a day. But a lot of households in Baseco don't have that convenience, don't have the resource. So what's interesting is that some older adults, so this is a different take on what Sir I mentioned a while ago. He mentioned that older adults need the support of either the daughter or the son. And he classified that this may not be the urban context. In my studies, I've seen that older adults are not dependent on the younger generation. In fact, by the time they're 65, they're still working. By the time they're 70, they're still working. A person who's supposed to be with us today from Baseco as well is still working. Why? Because I saw a phenomenon that I call the missing second generation. It was observed in Africa in the AIDS crisis that a lot of the second generation people died of HIV, and because of that, all the responsibilities were thrown to the older adult generation to care for the younger generation. I've seen that in Baseco in a lot of contexts, from the concept of lokangs, you know, the drug war. We have a lot of orphans now in Baseco being cared for by the Lolo and Lola and the grandparents, and we have you know, marriages outside, a whole lot of things. So the older adults in Baseco are participating in a lot of informal economy. And what's interesting is that one of those informal economy happens to be after disaster. So when there's a typhoon coming in, although they're going to be sad that, you know, there's going to be flood again, but essentially, to some extent, they're very happy. Why? The fish pens of Laguna de Bay overflows, and the ones in Rizal. And so, because Baseco is an estuarial community, Pasig River, Manila Bay, which he wants to swim in, those things those are the basin, water basin. So all of the fish that got out of the fish pans, all of the lumber that got out of those areas, goes directly to Manila Bay, Baseco area. And because of that, there will be good kalakal, a lot of fish, a whole lot of things. And so, even though they've evacuated on the centers already, what's interesting is that a lot of them would like to get out of the evacuation center as soon as the rain stops. Why? Because it's kalakal. You know, there's going to be a lot of scrap available. So older adults would like to go to this was, what typhoon was that? There was a typhoon. I forgot what it was. There's just always a typhoon here. So there was this typhoon, and then we went there to do some documentary work. And you feel like this is solid land, right? Because it's a screen capture. It's actually a video, but I screen captured it. This is not solid land. It's actually waving. Why? Because this is on top of water. But what's interesting is that you can see that the boy is on top of it, like Jesus Christ. He's not miraculously walking on water. He's walking on solid trash brought about by the typhoon to this area. Was he sad? No, they were very happy. Why? Look at what he's carrying. A sack that he will fill with kalakal so that he could sell it, and that adds to their livelihood. So what is disaster? When we ask them, what is disaster? they would say, oh, it depends. How do you want us to discuss disaster? And so I sometimes